You said microwave generation. What did you mean by that?
Do it super fast, but you're going to be so unfulfilled by having not only that mentality, but the results that come from that type of process of like, all right, it's here. Well, you don't care about that because you didn't have to do anything for it.
Remember, guys, fitness is more than just physical capacity. Like, it's these skill things and the accuracy of it and the balance, the coordination.
If shit was really to hit the fan, you're definitely not going to clean and jerk your way out of it.
Welcome to the show. Thank you for taking part in this immersive listening experience. A meaningful existence is a moving target that, no matter how close, will always be out of reach. We hope this message finds you with an outstretched hand. As we attempt to uncover complex truths, remember, life's toughest questions can be answered if we all just focus on one thing: being good people.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Good People, episode 31. Today, I was joined by James Lancaster. He is the owner of the gym Deep River Fit, is one of the founding members of the nonprofit Kings of Grit, and is the brand manager for the coffee company Bloodhound Provisions. In today's episode, I chatted with James about the importance of building your health and fitness for any pursuit you have in life, his passion for hunting and service for others, and how to cultivate simplicity in your life. Before we begin today's episode, if you are watching on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our weekly uploads. Interacting with our show in any way really does help us out a ton. Enjoy the show. Well, welcome to the show.
I'm glad I'm here, dude. I appreciate you reaching out.
Yeah. I'll just say before I start, I've followed you on Instagram for a long time. And anybody listening, before you listen, you got to follow James on Instagram because you're probably one of the best follows on Instagram in terms of like high quality content.
I appreciate it, man. It's funny, interesting, man. Social media and Instagram in general it's a funny place just because everything is constantly changing as far as like algorithms and who they boost, what they boost. My biggest goal there is just to, as corny as it sounds, man, just be authentic. Like if I post something that is just like not super thought out, it's probably for a reason. I'm just going to post, hey, I had fun doing XYZ, and then I'll post it. Or, hey, this is a great product I use, and I'll post it. Or I won't post for 3 or 4 weeks, and I'll just like vibe with it, and I'll lose followers, I'll gain followers. Like I try not to let it work me up too much, but some people, they have to use it for their job. But there's only so much you can control because there's guys like you that see the page, find value in it. And even if it's just one guy that sees that I put a lot of work into the arbor I made for my wife to propose, and he's like, dang, man, that's a cool gig, and does it. Hey, man, everything I just did was extremely worth it. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. Let's tell that story officially. We were talking before the show on that. You built this arbor for your now wife.
Yeah.
I saw it on Instagram. You have really cool, I don't know if it's a background or at least an interest in photography and videography. So you put together this really beautiful video for it. I saw it and it sparked, this was just 2 or 3 months ago for me that I.
That's awesome. Congratulations, dog.
Thanks, man. Yeah. To my now fiance, but I built an arbor for her as well. It was a very similar gig. She was blindfolded.
That's
it was
sick.
the whole. I mean,
That's
I
perfect.
think I just copied you. The only difference was I think you did yours on like a beach somewhere, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, she didn't want to do anything that was like just super robust and had like a ton of people involved. We're just not that type of people anyway. I really wanted something that would be memorable for the both of us, privately, but two, that was more focused on us versus like, this is no knock on anybody that has a bunch of people involved, but I try to balance the whole like marriage and lead up and the production and all of these things that are cool that will eventually kind of subside and fade. I wanted it to be more about, hey, this is our journey together, and make it to where she felt special. So I I can't remember where I saw it. I don't think I necessarily saw it anywhere, but I just liked the traditional like arbor with some like, fabric or sash draped over, just super old school with some like flowers in it. And what I did was I built it and I actually boated it up the Mississippi River to a sandbar, stuck it in the ground. And I can't remember how many days later, but I was just glad that the water didn't rise too high. Um, Blindfolded her, took her upriver, and then proposed to her in front of, the arbor with the camera rolling and stuff like that. And just something, short and sweet, but also that represented, where we're from, where we're going to grow. And I hope that I accomplished that. And I'm hoping that I inspired some people to do it also.
Yeah, for us, I was kind of had the same thing where we're very, I didn't want it to be a big thing. I
Yeah.
didn't want people to be around necessarily for it. I wanted it to be about us. But I also think that she would not necessarily regret, but she would have preferred if there was video or at least
Sure.
photo evidence of the thing going down. So it was small. I did it at my parents' house. They've got like
That's
5
awesome.
acres or so. A
Dude,
lot of
heck
it's
yeah.
wooded.
That's cool.
I told my mom and dad before, I was like, guys, don't watch. And my mom has these pictures from her bedroom window with like the screen still
course.
visible through the window.
She's
Taking pictures
definitely
of
not
it.
missing that.
Yeah, yeah. Cayman was there. He was hiding behind the bushes, snapping pictures, and
That's cool.
everything went as planned for me.
That's awesome,
which is
dude.
awesome. Yeah. Tell me about that. Knowing you digitally, I guess, or it's weird. I've never met you before, but I feel like at some level I know who you are as a person
dude,
just
that's cool.
watching your Instagram.
Yeah.
Symbolism and meaning. You were touching on it a bit there with how you decided to propose to your wife, and
Yeah.
it seems like it's something that's very important for you to see. You talk a lot about roots and things like that. Where does that come from, and why has that always been important for you?
So, just even growing up, so funny story, I had to create a speech for this speech class in college. All right. And I interviewed my, grandmother at the time on my dad's side. And when I was interviewing her, and this can go in like a ton of different directions, but just going back to just kind of like roots and like what's ultimately important and kind of remembering where you came from. I was interviewing her and she's like in her 80s and like she starts crying, like just sobbing. And I was always close with her. So, that didn't bother me. And it's not like she like got up and left, but just like kind of the trauma that she went through and just all that stuff. My grandmother was actually born on a cotton sack in a cotton field. Um, she had like cornmeal delivered to her doorstep, like which was what welfare was. She had she actually raised enough money picking cotton to buy her first toothbrush when she was 12. Um, So, different times back then, obviously. But just like listening to that and just kind of going, man, I understand like, suffering is suffering. Everything else is fine detail, meaning, someone else's suffering is going to be different than mine, than hers, than everybody else's. But we all kind of go through some capacity of that. And my goal is to just kind of like, sometimes slow people down and really imagine what's important and what will last. That might not be what sells the most or what's going to go the most viral or whatever, but it's just something that I can't step away from. That's just kind of like who I am and what's built into me. Just knowing her story and knowing extended family stories and like uh, just other people that have gone through things, just stopping to ask why first, before, we start to have preconceived notions about certain things. So yeah, man, just like, roots are important, understanding why and the background behind all things before we kind of like jump into a certain stance somewhere. And then that filters into like, my Instagram and just kind of like trying to be artistic and representation at my gym and putting certain pictures and people and showing different faces and athletic abilities and non-athletic abilities of people that we're trying to help. And just to kind of broaden people's kind of overall perspective. And sometimes you can do that and not even say a thing.
Yeah, you are into so many things, and I think that's one of the reasons why I'm drawn to you. I feel like at some level, I'm similar, where
Yeah.
there's a whole bunch of stuff that I'm into, and it doesn't really seem to be connected by anything.
Yeah.
But at a very deep level, it is, and it's that very thing that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm a fitness trainer, I'm a CrossFit coach,
That's awesome.
and when I started doing that, I was like, this is it. This is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I'm helping people with their fitness. And to me, what that is just like fitness is the thing that lets you interface with life better from a physical and mental perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when I started this podcast, what I realized was, oh, I actually just want to help people interface with life in general better. And that means having conversations and getting to know people and learning about all the cool things that we're interested in, I'm sure that I'm going to add a whole bunch of other stuff to that list. But
Yeah.
what is that common thread? And just to go over some stuff that you're into, I wrote a list down here.
Yeah.
Fitness and sports, boxing, photography, woodworking, guitar playing. You're a coffee lover. You do a lot of service for others. You're a big hunter. I want to
Mm-hmm.
talk to you about that.
Yeah.
You're a husband. I'm sure you have tons and tons of other close ones and family friends.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like you have the best dog that's ever existed in the world.
Which was,
But
she's right here with me actually. Yeah, that takes a lot of just, consistency.
yeah. But what is that underlying thing? Is it those kind of roots that you were just describing that connects all those things, or is there something else that you can point to?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's roots, but also I like, I like having hard skills. Like, let's say you go to college and you get this degree and, you don't ever use it, but like having hard skills or people skills. And, I also, how I express myself artistically to like get away from, um, you know, social media and hustle culture and all of these things. I'm able to, you know, what's interesting about just kind of my age group, I'm 35. We grew up half of our lives without social media. So we're able to kind of like compartmentalize it a little bit. I'm able to dive in and then all of a sudden go, whoa, I need a break. Or some people grew up like they existed in it. They don't really know what that world is like. So doing all of these other things, like I'm drawn to that to kind of like gain peace or Sabbath with my hands, because if I'm always working with my mind or I'm physical, I might Sabbath with like sitting still. If I'm using my mind, I might Sabbath with my hands. So um having all of those skills gives me time to kind of like step away and like be artistic and like understand that there's a process to anything like beautiful, anything fulfilling or whatever. I do think that we're just in a microwave generation. And me being able to do all of those things allows me to kind of like stop and practice that uh, long term investment into something. And long term meaning like if I'm building something, I mean, it could take me like a month to really do well at it and make it look great and measure everything. And then after it's all done, I'm fulfilled by that. Whereas like man, anything worthwhile, you cannot do it like that. Even learning a song, you have to stop everything and be consistent with it. Like, it just doesn't happen. You can't just like wake up and go. If you can read music and understand pentatonic scale, like, all of that stuff, yeah, you can like pick up on things really fast, but it took you a while to get there. So I personally enjoy just kind of stepping away from everything and putting myself into those types of things, the process of stuff, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
even cooking.
Yeah. You said microwave generation. What did you mean by that?
Man, we're just so, everything that's sold to us is like, take the pill, put it in the microwave, get it quick. Anything that's convenience based is just our driver. And that goes even into like just economics and where we are going, um, in the world, in our consumer world. Like, just where capitalism is going and all that stuff. Like, we're losing, we don't have the next generation of like tech work, um, construction and plumbing and welding and all of these different things. Like, the next generation isn't getting told to do that, to work with your hands and have hard skills. And like, it takes time to do certain things. Don't get me wrong. Automation, can be convenient and nice and kind of help, but there's also a rate of diminishing returns there. If it's fast, it's probably cheap, for the most part. Uh, you know, I sound like an old head. They just don't make stuff like they used to, bro. It just is what it is. Like, even this desk that I have, I mean, you can hear it slam. It's metal. It's like from the 80s. There's nothing I can do to this to break it. They don't make, I mean, and then go to IKEA and get the same desk. I'll sneeze on it and it'll break. It just is what it is. Like, I mean, I can name just numerous things, like this light that I'm looking at that's kind of like a ring light. I mean, if I pinch that light anywhere wrong or too much, I can break it. Just little things like that I just look around and see. So that's what I would say with microwave generation, is just like, everything's just so like, do it super fast, but you're going to be so unfulfilled by having not only that mentality, but the results that come from that type of process of like, all right, it's here. Well, you don't care about that because you didn't have to do anything for it.
Mm. When you were talking there, I drew an interesting comparison in my mind, and it's almost like the difference between flipping, like going to a garage sale and flipping something, and in investing in something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're in a very flipping generation,
Yeah.
like flip economics generation, where it's like, if I do this today, tomorrow it will yield this result, instead of recognizing like, no, I'm going to put myself into this and it's going to return on, I'm going to get a big return on my investment in a decade from now. I think about that a lot with this show. Like, am I at the audience level that I want to be? Absolutely not, but I am building so many relationships and skills and knowledge just from you and I sitting down and having this conversation, that over the course of however long we have the opportunity to do this, I'm going to have those skills that you were describing. You enjoy building with all the stuff that you do.
Yeah. And then too, you have to understand just kind of like, just the generation and where we are, like, just financially, everybody, we're all trying to flip stuff because that's like what's driving the market. Like, dude, we're all pinching for the most part, some people more than others. So it's like, we put our hands in like 4 different things and we're just like, oh my gosh, maybe this will get me money. Maybe this will get me money. And then you have to have the conversation of like, what is ultimately fulfilling? Are you fulfilled by your work? Then it's going to come. Yeah, there's processes to take. Like, there's organic growth at my gym, but it's okay to go, I want a little more. So you like, boost your SEO and get involved in kind of like Google analytics and like pay someone to help you do that. And you find out what the ROI is there to get more people in. It's okay, I think, to do all of that and not be just solely on like, all right, if it grows, baby. Like, I'm not saying to just be, extremely passive, but if you're not fulfilled with the process and you don't enjoy that, man, you will just constantly bounce from place to place to place. I mean, this is for other reasons, but I mean, I've had just so many different jobs. I was project manager for a custom home builder. I was in the police academy. I was a head coach at a training facility, like, kids training and speed and agility. Um, you know, a coach at another CrossFit gym, and now I have my gym, and then a nonprofit, and then like a passion project with some buddies, with coffee. So what is ultimately fulfilling, and that's really what's going to help you, last. And what comes from that is going to be more fruitful, I think.
Mm. Yeah, if I could sum up from an outside perspective, it seems like you like building things,
Yeah.
whether that's a physical arbor or a gym or
Yeah.
a coffee company or skills. It's the building that you
Yeah.
are focused on.
Yeah. And then, what comes from that is like, I was actually just I'm in a Bible study with a buddy of mine. And it's just talking about work, and how that's good for us. But what the perspective is leaving things better than the way you found it, like cultivating growth and beauty from that toil of the land, like a farmer. He changes the composition of the soil to create this beautiful thing that grows and creates sustenance or fabric or whatever that may be, versus attaining monetary gains from it. So how do I leave a place or thing better? And then the cherry on the top is the gain from that. Like, me gaining from it shouldn't be what I'm pursuing. It's leaving it better than when I found it.
Mm-hmm.
That could be people. Like, if you're a therapist, you're leaving that couple better for themselves. You're leaving the company better. You're leaving the raw materials that are laying on the garage floor. You're making those better. So it's just having that different perspective.
Yeah. And in the same vein as this conversation, you will get those things with that change of perspective, as you just mentioned. Like, if I can come on this podcast with you and I have a whole bunch of questions that I haven't even gone into yet, just
Yeah.
because you've said something and it's piqued my interest and I just
Yeah.
wanted to sort of follow the thread, right?
Sure.
And if you and I have an open, honest, authentic conversation and we just start a relationship, and I actually have family in Clarksville, Tennessee, by
That's
the
cool.
way. So,
That's awesome.
if I'm ever rolling through and I stop by your gym
Yeah.
and we get a workout in, it's being authentic in that way. The benefit of that is maybe in a decade from now, you've got like this thing that you need some help with and you
Sure.
reach out to me and
Yeah.
whatever, maybe I'll benefit from it. But I'm not having this conversation so that on the off chance that in a decade from now you need something from me
Yeah.
and I'm going to help you out.
Sure.
But just building relationships and things, and I love that perspective. Leave something better than you found it. Something the gym owner that I work at always says is, don't walk past spilled milk. It's like, if you see something, say something and fix it, right?
Yeah.
It's all in that same sort of vein, ideology,
Yeah.
action, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I want to talk to you a bit about some of these different aspects specifically that you're into. Let's get started with your gym. When did you first open Deep River Fit?
Deep River Fit, I opened that in 2019.
Okay. What was the mission objective of that time?
Well, I mean, I laugh because like I had like a couple $100 in my bank account. I know this sounds super like cliche, but the gym that I was previously working at, I was just like, I'm not gonna like long term be involved because I just didn't agree with kind of like just how they loved on their people and just like led the group and everything. I was like, man, I have a different way that I desire to do it. Uh, I was tired of bouncing around from place to place and was finally like, hey man, I need to make this thing happen. Found a realtor. We found a space immediately. And I was just like, all right, I'll take it. Parents co-signed on the loan and I just ran, and I didn't have an option. that was the mission. Like I gotta make this work. So just as I did that, I poured literally everything into it. For the first like 7 months or so, I was coaching every class. I was there 5, left at 8 every day for about 7 months. Then, as people saw the culture, as people saw my mentality, I brought on people that kind of shared that same, mentality and culture and those types of things. And I brought them on kind of slowly. So the mission was like, I want people to come in and have a place where they can like feel at home. And it'll be their, third place, so to speak. Some people use that terminology in business. Like first place is like your home, your next one's work, and the third place is being fulfilled around people. And I want people to come to the gym and use CrossFit as a resource. I think the whole competitive thing, I personally think I wouldn't use the term dead, but the driving factor of that for people is no longer there. Uh, you know, Competitive fitness isn't CrossFit. Uh, you know, some people may crucify me for that, but I
No, I
don't.
agree. The sport, I would say that to clients. The sport, CrossFit, and what we do is different.
It's not. It's not even close to the same. Competitive fitness isn't healthy. There, I said it. It's not healthy. Neither is professional football. Neither is like these like 100-mile running races back to back to back to back. Like none of that is health. It's performance, and that's okay. But I want people to view what I do at the gym as something that amplifies life outside of the gym. For instance, in the CrossFit handbook, it says regularly play and learn new sports. Not one page in there says, hey, come get good at CrossFit.
Yeah.
Not once. It's nowhere in the handbook. Hey, come in, perfect CrossFit, get good at CrossFit. It is nowhere in there. I want people to view this as the best bang for your buck in an hour. So if you go and do yoga, Pilates, you walk once a week with your girls, like whatever, consistency is great. I think that's amazing. But as you work into the science of things and you want more, all right, we will encompass more that you need long term and longevity wise under the right leadership. There's some bad programming out there, but under the right leadership, we'll do everything. We'll work on skills and balance and accuracy, and we'll do aerobic workouts. We'll do stuff that's really hard and really fast, but we won't always live in that realm. So I want to make sure that people know this is your best resource within 1 hour that you'll find anywhere, and it will amplify life outside of the gym.
Yeah. Man, that's like my ethos to a T with what I believe. And, just sometimes you'll post those training day videos on your Instagram too. And I always look at those and I'm like, yeah, this is it. It's a couple of heavy sets of something and then like a short, intense workout.
Yeah,
You do a lot of skill work, which I don't think a lot of CrossFit programs do enough of. Like
yeah,
it's always something that I tell my coaches a lot is remember, guys, fitness is more than just physical capacity. Like it's these skill things and the accuracy of it and the balance, the coordination, and
yeah,
like the stuff that actually takes practice. That's annoying when when you're trying to learn
yeah,
how to do a double under or a
yeah,
handstand or whatever. On a day when you're beat up, set a 20-minute clock and just roll with it and try to
yeah. Just
figure
sweat.
it out.
Yeah, and then too, we do stuff like that's like ball sport. Change of direction things and jumping and kind of like just doing something that's not linear. Because if shit was really to hit the fan, you're definitely not going to clean and jerk your way out of it. You're going to run and jump and move around and get out of there. Does it, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we got to
I
put that
want,
on a t-shirt, man.
yeah, I want you to be able to jump and move and evade the situation. Um, I, I do think a lot of the stuff that we do in CrossFit is wonderful. But we also need to make sure that we just do everything and practice it and just like kind of be prepared with that type of thing. Like the last thing I want you to do is be like in your mid 50s, you jump out of your truck bed and you like fall down because you don't know how to like land properly. just like little things like that where you like, we laugh about it, but it's like, man, please don't lose that skill. Or like, you know, older gentlemen that want to continue to hunt in the woods, like if you get snagged on a small little stick, being able to kind of like catch yourself and balance yourself, and like, man, there is nothing worse than like feeling helpless.
Yeah.
So I try to incorporate like multiple things there.
And what bothers me too is like, this is day one strength and conditioning. And it is that general physical preparedness leads to better specific outcomes. So
Yeah.
like, I guess it's because of Instagram and all, and like the
Yeah.
clickbait nature of everything, but everybody wants to have like their golf specific program or their
Yeah.
hunting specific program. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, no, if you just go get stronger, you can breathe a little heavier,
Yeah.
you can do it, you can move heavier loads under
Yeah.
fatigue, and then you go do the thing that you want to do, like you hunt or you
Yeah.
whatever. That's what's going to make the biggest difference. Like, you don't need to do anything for your specific sport. You just need to get in shape.
Yeah, I agree with that. Just, and yeah, it's definitely a selling thing. Like, man, you know, you just said the word general. It's just so unsexy. Like, someone, I was just talking to a coach, at the gym, and she and I were talking about just like aerobic capacity and like, fartlek training and blah, 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 just all of these different things. And I was just like, man, I mean, I got in shape by going 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off for an hour. Now I built up to that, but what I mean is like a sustainable, repeatable interval and building density and just making it bigger. Like the bottom of a pyramid, just bigger, 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 bigger. And then that overall is going to make every other energy system like better being involved in there. And without going like just being super sciencey, what I'm trying to say is, yes, like a kid that wants to get better at throwing, like go have fun playing your sport, number one. Number two, just like get a little stronger and play the sport. I think a lot of people get involved with like, hey, in order to jump higher and this, you need this like super specific program. Get stronger and jump. I don't want that to sound like super oversimplified, but like you need to practice jumping, running, and get generally stronger. Like I hate to like make it just so simple that you're like, man, you're wrong. Dude, this has been proven like time and time again. And I think the same thing goes into business. Be consistent, make people feel good, have hospitality. You don't need to have this like grandiose program. Keep everybody safe, have fun, and do the general things amazing. And they'll just be like, never seen a place like this before.
Yeah. 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 And to that point too, it's like, do you remember what it was like when you started working out? Like all the fitness professionals that say you're going to kill your gains if you do this, or you're not going to move your performance this way, or you'll never grow your business if you do this, or you'll
Yeah.
never have a great relationship if you do this. It's like the people who are saying that, if you took a snapshot of the first couple times they did the thing they're talking about, like when I first started working out at like 15, 16, I was just like throwing my hip into every bicep curl that I could. And
Yeah.
I was bench pressing, my feet were probably sliding all over the floor.
Yeah.
Like that learning process and messing up is a huge part of it. And so you're not gonna hurt yourself. You're not going to, obviously you want to be under professional supervision and do these things and execute them well.
Yeah.
But making mistakes is part of it, and you're going to be fine if you just stick with it.
100%, dude. Be consistent.
We've talked a lot about using fitness and stuff like that for regular life.
Mm-hmm.
I know hunting is a huge aspect of your life.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. How long have you been a hunter?
Gosh, I think the first hunt I went on, I was like 8 years old, and it was down in Tunica with my dad and a couple of his buddies. We used to hunt Tunica Lake out of a boat, actually. And one of my first memories of hunting is when I grew up. I grew like really fast, which most kids, do, but like I would grow out of like boots and this so fast. So I would always get bought like the cheap stuff. And I'll never get, man, one hunt, my feet being so freaking cold. So cold because it was just rubber boots and the weather was like 17. And I'm sure my mom was like looking at my dad going, dude, what are you doing? Well, we had this little buddy heater on. My shoes were off. I had this single shot, um, under over or single shot crack open 20 gauge. And I'll never forget this duck flew in out of nowhere, just super quiet. And that was kind of like my coming of like, age. I picked up the gun and shot it as it was flying. And everybody was like, oh man, yeah. That was a cool thing to experience. So that was the first hunt. And, man, ever since then, man, it's been a super big passion of mine. Obviously, sports took a big kind of chunk of time. And then now I feel like I'm really catching up on, not necessarily time lost, but I'm really catching up on, um, having this be my number one passion now that I'm not doing those other things.
Yeah, I'm really fascinated in this topic because I've grown up my whole life with a hunting cabin. I've got a cabin in West Virginia. I was just there this past weekend that my grandfather built in 1979.
That's cool.
And we grew up going there.
Mm-hmm.
The last couple of years going to school and becoming adults, it was one of those things where we've kind of neglected that area and we're like really getting back into it. And my brother and I, we've got a little brother. I got an older brother. But we have a little brother and a sister, and then my cousins. None of them really were invested in this property. My brother and I were really the ones that would go up there with my grandpa.
Yeah.
And man, I've never been hunting once in my entire life. My dad and my grandpa used to go, and I remember maybe a year or two ago, I was like, "How come you guys never took me?" And then they were like, "Well, you never said anything." And then I was like, "Well, you guys never asked if I wanted to go." But I'm really getting to that point in my life. And especially these last couple of weeks, having gone up to my cabin and just simple stuff, man, like have a fire, split some wood.
That's it, man.
I really am fortunate to have a space like that.
Sure.
I feel as I'm going to get older, I'm sure this is going to even become more true. That land is going to become even more a part of me, and hopefully me it right. But I do jujitsu. I'm in the self-improvement space. I'm a CrossFit coach. So I know a lot of guys who are hunters, and I'm very excited in the next couple of years to hopefully get my feet wet in that and be shown how to do a lot of that stuff, because I think it's something that I would, it's like everything else. It's such a spiritual practice that I know I'll really enjoy being invested in.
Absolutely, man. And then, so I'm very passionate about it, but also, I think of if let's say social media disappeared, politics disappeared, everything like that, went back way into the Stone Age. People that yell and scream about hunters and like all of these different things, like that's a privileged stance. Imagine you live somewhere where and if you want to eat, you have to kill an animal. Like, not all soil all over the world is like easily cultivated, but there's animals. Do you see where I'm going with that? Like, when people have this, anti stance and they don't understand kind of the perspective around that stuff, you having that stance towards me and what I'm doing, that is a privileged stance. You have a very privileged ability to like downplay, the activity that I take part in. Whereas if you didn't live in a super industrialized space, well, what would you eat? How would you live? Before we had grocery stores and anything of any of that capacity, how did you sustain life as a human? Where did that come from? Do you think we like always just like planted soybeans? No. Like, how do you think we're even like, an evolving people? And like, how do you think the Industrial Revolution came about? And how did we even get there? Well, have you gone without food for a while? Have you felt the taste of like animal fat after being in the mountains forever and eating like little oatmeal? Like, I don't think people sometimes understand kind of like true like hardship and what is involved in that. So yes, I agree. It's a very spiritual process because it is a gift to be able to, kill an animal and eat from it. It's a life-giving thing, and there's so many properties of that animal. Not only the physical skill and patience that's involved, because you can't just walk out there and do it. I'm sorry, especially if you're after either a certain animal or a certain size of animal. There's the list goes on where you're going. But yeah, man, a hunting, like you said, I think is very much a one of those long term fulfilling things, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, and I was thinking about this a couple weeks ago. I was listening to a podcast on hunting, and what's interesting is that vegans and hunters, it's like two sides of the same coin.
Mm-hmm.
Most people who become vegans or become hunters, they start that journey with the same thought, and it's a distaste for industrial farming and
Mm-hmm.
how animals are being treated. And
Yeah,
then, you that's the starting point. And vegans, come to this conclusion that I don't know if I could be in a part of this process of taking a life. And
yeah,
hunters accept the fact that it's a necessity,
it's
and
a
they want to be as
necessity.
close to it as possible.
And there you go. And some of that, dude, is just based on some of it is just based on ignorance. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, yeah, it's not like I'm like bloodthirsty and I love killing an animal and watching it squirm around. Like, yo, that's not even close to what I desire. But have you ever like heard and seen like a grizzly bear attack and kill like an elk, and the noises and the suffering? Like, that's not how we operate. We don't do it like that. It's like a very short process as best we can with our shot placement or whatever. It's a quick and quiet um, like you said, spiritual thing that we have now gained from that. We gained from the land that we are taking from. So, yeah, dude. I mean, I understand kind of like the sympathy and the morality of like, man, I don't want any suffering involved in that. But I do think there's a lot of ignorance based around that, and I think from both sides, like, a hunter just yelling and screaming at a vegan. Well, bro, like no one ever converted because they lost an argument. That can be via like religion or your stance on politics or your stance on like food or whatever. You screaming and yelling at one another, like no one's going to come to your side because you like triumphed over them.
Yeah.
So you gaining that relationship and just over time, them learning the process and like, educating them on the why and like how beneficial it is. And like, hey, I actually don't do X, Y, and Z that you probably saw on social media. Like, that's actually not how I operate. Like, I
Yeah.
don't do what all those like weird rednecks do. Like, that's not even close to what like I do. And them calling themselves a hunter and they're operating like that. No, he's not. That's not a hunter. They don't. The ethos of what we do is ethical and moral and sustainable, and like that's what I want to represent. I don't want to represent somebody that's just like screaming and yelling at you because like you disagree with what I do.
Yeah, both of the things we've talked about, fitness and hunting, it seems like you've had that common thread where you recognize that there's subgroups within those things that you wanted to distance yourself from. And a good
Yeah.
analogy for this is I've actually heard I had a Catholic roommate in college, and he described it to me like this. A lot of things in life, imagine a hand holding a diamond. A lot of things in life are like that. The diamond's always going to be pure, but sometimes the hand that holds it is dirty. So whether it's, you're working out at a gym that you just don't quite get along with the values, or,
Mhm.
an unethical hunter, right? It doesn't dirty the diamond. It's, you're looking at a very specific group of people that
Yeah.
are making it that way, and
Yeah.
the thing itself is most likely pure, or has grace, things like that.
Yeah. Anything with people involved is messed up.
Mm.
Name me one place where people involved is not somewhat messed up. Name one thing where everything is pure and people are involved. And that goes into that segues into another like spot of why I'm a believer, and we all need, grace and a savior, because we're all messed up. Like, and we can't defeat that on our own. So yeah, like having grace for multiple situations involved, like whatever spot that you go to and that you're in, if people are in there, it is gonna be messed up. So just having, like you said, that mentality, the diamond is always going to be pure, and we're seeking that. We have to have grace that the hand's going to be a little dirty. People are going to just like have trauma. People are going to have people that have wronged them. People are going to have like, ooh, I saw this, this, and this, and I hate that. Well, I don't represent that. Would you mind having a conversation with me about that? Those types of things.
Mhm. This kind of flows right into Kings of Grit. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah. So Kings of Grit, I go into the jail and I mirror corporate structure with fitness and competition. So, like, name any Fortune 500 company. They've got a mission statement and core values. I want these guys to understand what those things are so they can kind of speak the lingo, but then also, team building. Misery loves company, right? These companies do team building, and it sounds kind of like corny, but like it works. When all of you are suffering together and working hard, like that builds rapport, and that helps us grow to make decisions under like duress and like all of those things. And Kings of Grit also is, I want these guys to understand what health and longevity is, because imagine you've been taught interview skills and this job and all these different things, but the one vehicle for success is your mind, body, and spirit, and you have no education on that. Imagine getting a sales job. You're given a car and you don't even know how to turn it on, much less put gas in it, change the oil, rotate the tires, do X, Y, and Z, wash it, clean it, blah, blah. You don't even know how to feed it and create longevity. And that's what your body is. If you don't even know what a macro is, if you don't even know, like, hey, you got to drink, let's try to drink half your body weight in ounces of water. Like, if you don't understand what sleep, stress, creating daily exercise activity in any capacity, just walk daily, just start there. Man, if you don't have that, how do you expect these guys to go into the job field and live sustainable long-term lives in their job and be fulfilled? If you run a big company, you know that there's a lot of money that goes into rehiring people and training. There's a lot of money there. Well, damn, let me build these guys up. Let me co-sign for them. What's the difference in you grabbing resumes off Indeed and me basically like mentoring them to live sustainable and fruitful job lives inside your company? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you guys are actually going in and like, are you specifically teaching them like, when you're out of here, this is how you can go about looking for jobs, and then you sort of like top it off with the health and wellness?
Yeah. So and there's 3 phases at Mark Electoral Transition Center. There's phase 1, 2, and 3. Phase 2 would be more of like it's programs driven, and with me, we work out. Like fitness and competition is what's going to build you up, and create and fortify you to have like the knowledge and like the ability to learn fitness, and through that, generally, when you're a fitter person, you're a little happier person. You're just wiser about your body and what's important there. And then from that, we can now segue those core values that you've built and go into whatever job that you desire. And there's certain companies that like, and I'm always building that resume of like companies to work with, of like taking on some type of apprentice style program. But it's focused around fitness. I just basically extend my gym because we know what CrossFit and fitness does for us, and for other people within all walks of life. I mean, you name the job, there's probably somebody from that job works out regularly, does some CrossFit, and how that makes them more successful in their job. So I'm not making like rockets. I'm not doing anything crazy. I'm literally just like mentoring and creating physical activity and, decisions under stress and learning and humility and all of that. And I'm taking that into whatever they want to pursue.
Do you have any success stories or maybe things that stand out about a specific person or group of people that you've
Oh
helped?
yeah. So one thing when I was at 201 Poplar, I've got one guy, he wrote 3 books while he was in jail. He has now self-published one on Amazon. And man, I had the book right on me. I'm trying to think what the name of it is. Anyway, long story short, just creating and giving them an opportunity to see like that entrepreneurial side of themselves. Like, and then another guy who's working for Heavy Machines, he also runs like a detail company, and like they had to even tell that guy, "Hey man, Darnell, don't clean the machines that much." Like he would just like make them so clean, and then like he changes the culture. So corporately, another thing that's cool about this is like this is an untouched labor pool. These guys are ready to come in and fulfill those tech jobs that we talked about, and heavy machines and construction and landscape and all those things. And, when they come in, like they're ready to be loyal. You'll have a bad apple from time to time. That's just part of it. But, these guys are ready to change their lives, and they're ready to get in and be loyal to a company. And that's a culture changer, because a lot of the vibe with some of these like heavy machine companies or whatever, these guys like bounce around to whoever's just paying more. They don't care. You don't pay enough, I'm going over here. It's that type of mentality. And then when you got a guy, and not necessarily you're taking advantage of his situation, but man, it's kind of fulfilling when you have someone bought in and ready to kind of stay as long as you take care of them. So
Yeah.
that's another success story. You got Darnell and Gabriel, like 2 different avenues. One guy's like writing books, one guy's working with his hands. I mean, it's cool.
Yeah. Why is this kind of service important for you?
Well, I mean, damn, dude, like that's a whole nother conversation. My brother in high school, he was one of the top recruited running backs in the entire country. Just got into some trouble, went to juvenile detention, missed some games. We were like writing letters to each other while he was in there. We go about our separate ways for a while. We come back, we get invited into the jail by his PO officer. And while I was in there, come up with a workout, and they loved it. Well, I kept coming back. And Gabriel actually was the one that said this. He goes, "Man, you're a man of your word." I was just like, "Well, yeah, of course." But it didn't dawn on me until like a few weeks later. I was like, "Oh, no one comes in here and like moves into the neighborhood. They always just invite like a sheriff, a pro athlete, whatever, and do the hoorah." It's like, "No, man, come sit at the table. Like, come hang out. Like, come be a part of these guys' lives." And I'm not throwing punches at anybody who has come in and given a speech, but because not everybody has the ability to do what I do. I'm not saying that, but it's important to me because, man, if we don't mentor, those young men and women in that age, there's a lot of other like things that are fighting us. When these people grow up, like trauma. Um, a great book is The Body Keeps a Score. And it talks about trauma and how trauma stays with your body, even if you like don't remember it. So you'll disassociate, all right, your out of body experience, you'll forget it mentally, but your body holds the trauma. So imagine you don't have a clue what that even is. And you go into a room, you're like, I don't know, let's say you're 15, go into a room, the light's a certain way, somebody's postured in a door a certain way, and you like break out in hives, or you start to sweat, or you start to cry even. And what happened was like when you're like 9, you got molested as a kid. Like, understanding what some of these guys go through, men and women, and how that affects them long term. Like, it can be a long period of stress and trauma. It can be a single event, but allowing them to process that, allowing them to, one, talk that out, but also work that out. A lot of times, something that coincides with working through your trauma is like regular exercise of any kind. It doesn't have to be CrossFit. It can be like yoga or some type of team style exercise activity, working through that, releasing those endorphins and getting active and fighting depression and letting all of that kind of like, without going into the science of what's happening in your body, doing that regularly. That's why the service to me is so important. Is like, man, the body is such a vehicle, mind, body, and spirit, physically, mentally, spiritually. Like, I think that kind of like gets jumped over as we're trying to rehabilitate these people. So
Yeah.
does that make sense?
That makes sense. And, thanks for sharing that story. That's why I do what I do. I think, it's no surprise when people say we're dealing with the highest level of depression and anxiety and all the issues that we're facing mentally
Mm-hmm.
in our world today with COVID and all these challenges, right? And for sure, it's a mental problem, but I think first and foremost, it's an everything problem. Like
Mm-hmm.
that triad, mind, body, spirit, is so closely related. You described something earlier. I can't remember the language you used, but on another podcast, I heard Andrew Huberman describing it. But powerful things are when you can have either a still body and an active mind, or an active body and a still mind. And if you ask anybody who has any sort of exercise program that they've been following for any number of years,
Mm-hmm.
it probably started with like, yeah, I wanted to lose a couple pounds, I wanted to look better naked. But now they're like, if I don't do this, I go crazy. I do this for my mental health. And
Yeah, it becomes a part of you. It's something that you just do.
yes, being active and being in your body takes you out of your mind. And
100%.
being in your mind can sometimes take you out of your body. And it's good to play around with and experiment with both because, at the end of the day, no matter what you do, I feel like the main reason why we're all here is to sort of figure this thing out. And
Mm-hmm.
and the way you interface with that is your body and your mind
Mm-hmm.
and your spirit. And
Yeah,
so it's I think part of being a good person and living a good life is exploring that as much as you can.
absolutely.
Yeah. Listen, man, to wrap a couple questions up here,
Yeah.
you have a beautiful simplicity to the things that you do. We just got done talking about moving your body. You spend time in nature, hunting.
Mm-hmm.
You give a lot, and you're in service to others. You explore your mind, your creative side that we didn't talk too much about, but with photography and
Yeah.
videography. You have loved ones. You have a beautiful wife, probably family one day.
Yeah.
Um, and my question is, what can you say to people listening about how to cultivate that sort of simplicity in their own lives?
Um, yeah. So that does it takes practice. It takes slowing down and going after what will ultimately last you. Um, are you fulfilled in your work? Are you fulfilled in your relationships? Um, are you creating longevity with what you're trying to do, even your workout program or whatever that is? And just like, having faith in that, and having faith in, what's ultimately to come. So that's how I just like simplify things, is like, I do get caught up in the whole hustle culture sometimes. I do understand that, wanting more and like being able to pay off this and go buy this and do this and be successful in business. And like, sure, you want all that, but you can't take any of that with you. Um, so, memories, experiences, things that I build, songs that I learn, and just finding time to appreciate that stuff is something that I seek after. And, you know, sometimes it's easier for me to do because I don't have necessarily like a platform to sustain like other people. Like even Tasia, for instance, has like all these followers, and like, some of her friends have all these followers, and that, leads into like, the mental stuff that I think a lot of people are going through. But, you know, me having the mentality of like, man, what ultimately matters? Like, I get certain people pay their bills doing certain things, but just having that balance of like, man, what do I take with me when I go?
What do you think it means to be a good person?
Leaving a person, place, or thing better than how you found it. So like, and that doesn't necessarily mean like fixing someone, but like, how did you make that person feel? Going to a place, like, how did you dive in and enjoy it and make that place better? A thing, what did you cultivate from your work? Being a good person, I think, is asking the why first. Showing up with grace and understanding, and then listening to someone's story.
Is there anything else you'd like to add, man?
Brother, I'm just glad you had me out, man. I know that we got a lot of stuff that we have to do and pursue and like go all out and to try to be successful. And every now and then, man, it's just nice to sit down and just kind of chat for an hour and just like relax.
Yeah, it's crazy how little I do this only when I record a podcast and I get to post about it. But
Yeah,
you're right. I'm always so grateful to be able to have conversations like this, and
yeah, dude.
especially when we get to go to the places like you and I were able to go today.
100%, brother. I appreciate you reaching out to me.
Yeah, where can people find more from you and the content and stuff like that you're putting out?
Yeah, so Deep River Fit on Instagram is my gym. Kings of Grit on Instagram is my nonprofit. And then Jay Lancaster is my personal Instagram page. And then from there, you can find different websites to go to. You can see the photos. Bloodhound Provisions is the coffee company that I'm involved in. That's based here in Memphis, Tennessee. That's involved in the outdoor space. So yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff to kind of like meander through and look at. So if there's anything that I can help anybody with, please reach out.
Good deal. I will. I'll be sure to include all those links and stuff in the
Yeah,
show
dog.
notes.
Yeah.
I actually have some blind blend coming in the mail. I think
Let's
it'll be
go.
tomorrow.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
excited.
I love it, dog. That's awesome, man. I appreciate you supporting us.
Yeah, and if I ever find myself on the very far west side of Tennessee,
Come on.
I'll come on through, man.
Absolutely, dog. Well, Joel, I appreciate you, man.
Yep, absolutely. We'll leave it there.
All right, buddy.
Thank you guys so much for listening to this week's episode of Good People. Again, if you enjoyed my conversation with James, make sure to check out all that he has going on in the show notes below. If you guys are watching on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our weekly uploads. If you enjoyed this episode while you were listening to it, please share the link with someone you love. It really does help us out a ton. We'll see you next time.